and I was asked by Manuel to come here and talk about Web3 and to show what's hype and what's reality. So if anyone likes Web3 and believes that everything across blockchain, crypto, Web3 and everything else should be all fun and games, then unfortunately this is not the speech. So we're going to talk about how boring it is and why it's actually needed. But before we do anything, then I have a couple of questions I've prepared to all of you to understand the audience here. So first of all, how many of you know what blockchain is? That's usually what people put their hands up. And the second question is, how many of you think that blockchain is a scam? That's a good start.
99% of the projects might be a scam, I believe.
Question is blockchain as a technology a scam?
Yeah, right.
Then maybe not, but with companies, I do agree, at least 90%. But then again, at least 90% of any company is a scam. Second question is, how many have played around with blockchain in any form? Okay. Does anyone want to say what type of form you played with?
I use a secret network for
Okay.
programming.
Yep. Good guys. Yeah, so maybe the next question, just to get you open, is how many of you have tried to build anything on blockchain? Yeah, some. Good.
Technically or as a concept?
Just as a concept, building anything on blockchain. And how many of you have bought any NFTs and mated them? So you have all bought an NFT and mated them.
And what?
And mated them.
What's that?
Okay, so I understand that most of you are not OGs with NFTs then, because there's a difference between those that have had NFTs and those that have had NFTs and mated them. Yeah, so my story goes so that I first heard about blockchain back in 2010-11, and I was convinced it's a scam. And basically, I did not look into it for quite some time, believing that everything to do with any crypto is a scam. I've since learned, and my first learning was back in 2015 when I was in Draper University, which is the kind of like a human accelerator built by Tim Draper, who's the first investor in Skype, Tesla, SpaceX, and a couple of other companies, together with Steve Jobson. And he was also the guy that managed to, at some point, buy from the US government the biggest amount of Bitcoin, and still is the biggest individual whale. Back in 2015, I went there, and I was building some other company. Everyone else was building something with Bitcoin. The best idea there was, let's take Bitcoin ATM, put it into the worst neighborhood in New York, and reap the profits. So that's when I figured that yes, Bitcoin is a scam. But I still was curious, and as a result, I decided to dig deeper, just to understand like how deep does it go. So I tested out some things called earn.com, which enable you to answer questions and earn some Bitcoin for that. I set up Bitcoin mining on my computer and kept on just playing around in different ways, all until I bought some CryptoKitties, which are the first NFTs, a picture of a cat on an NFT, and if you have two cats, one a male cat, another one a female cat, then you can mate them, and you can get the third cat. So that was what I was asking about. Have you played around with NFTs and mated them? And I do see Jacob there, who has also been to Draper University. So he also knows some things. Yeah, and then I did follow all of it, but kept my distance until back in 2019, when my daughter was born, and my friends decided to gift some different cryptos to her, which meant that I had to open a wallet and accept them, which then gave me a good reason to start looking deeper into it. And long story short, since then we are building our own supply chain protocol to connect all world's supply chain companies through one protocol, which does use blockchain in some ways. And basically everything I've been doing now is somewhat involved with Web3. So the question is, why? if it's such a scam, and if it's most of the things are not that great. And that's the topic here, that what's the hype, that's the reality. Does anyone have any questions here? And let's keep it as open and conversational as possible. Any questions? If not, then when we start with what is blockchain, then the thesis is that blockchain is nothing else than just a notary system. Meaning that it's nothing else but a connected network of computers that has a logbook attached, and everything that has been doing between the computers exchanged is stored there, and as a result you can trace back the history. We were just discussing with Merit that blockchain is actually perfect for storing the real history. And whoever does start putting the human history on blockchain will be able to get this one line, and then we won't have the question whether the Russian history or the German history or the Estonian history is right. Because after all, everyone likes to rewrite history, but if it's on blockchain, then at least there's one single source. And that's actually the thing, that blockchain is nothing else than just a notary system. And there's nothing pure about it, it's just something. And it's super boring in the end. Or is there anyone that tries to say that it is very exciting and not part of boring infrastructure?
Well, on the tech layer, maybe I mean, I'm not a tech guy, so I cannot judge about that, but on the project layer, I think it's very exciting. And
I know, it's super exciting on a tech level. But when we are talking about most blockchain things, then it is completely okay if 99% of the people that you're describing what you're doing are completely brain wrecked after that and don't understand a thing. They never have to. And maybe some of the things that people believe about blockchain, and those are kind of hard concepts because I really don't believe in those, and thus I need to read those down for you. And if anyone does believe that some of them are reality, we can discuss about it. The thing that people think what blockchain is that first of all, you can use blockchain to consign assets to a third party without trusting them. Second of all, if you announce that you're using blockchain, your stock price will surge. Third of all, big data will magically work if you put anything on blockchain. Fourth, you can't ever be hacked. And fifth, that documents that you put on blockchain can never be made public. So this is everything that blockchain is not, even though a lot of people still do believe that it is. And if we talk about what it actually is in the end, then it's much more exciting if you're into supply chain, and if not, then super boring again. The reality is that blockchain is something that helps you confirm that the bill of lading or any other documents that you sent to someone who then sent to someone else is the same throughout the chain. Then using blockchain does create an audit trail for all of your records, which helps you avoid tampering and errors across systems. Because a very big problem is that if I'm connected with Phil, and Phil is sending something to Merit, and Merit is sending something to Jacob, and all of us are using some sort of different databases, tools, whatever, then every now and then something changes there, and then no one really knows which was the original truth. Also, blockchain is something that governments should love, because it enables them to audit and prove the authenticity of everything to the auditors and customers. So if anyone is about privacy here, then the story that I've been saying since 2018 was I met with some high officials from Dubai government, and they were saying that so everyone is talking about privacy. Here in Dubai, everyone knows that there's privacy. We tell them, everyone knows. In every other country, people say that there's privacy, and governments are trying to say that, but actually there's no privacy. Everyone across the world understands what's happening. And that's where blockchain does not really help. It's rather helps to make it all be even more connected and public. Also, blockchain does help you to confirm that assets are unpledged, so that you did not pledge them under some sort of previous loan, because it's again publicly available. And finally, because everything is public, you can audit documents from your vendors. So if anyone does send you something, you can audit that it was the same thing that the initial person did send. And that is why it's actually a great mechanism for those parties that are trying to do business with those parties who they don't trust. So in the end, it's just a trust mechanism. And there's maybe some of you have seen this meme that's do you need a blockchain? And basically the end reason, the only way you actually need a blockchain is if you need to transact with someone you have no similar context with, and you don't have anyone to trust that also trusts this person, and that's when you need blockchain. In every other case, you could be doing without it. But then again, most of the business is such where you don't have anyone to trust. And on that note, is there any question between, or anyone that wants to go and argue? I like arguing.
I've heard you speaking about this before, and probably most of us have heard different people speaking about blockchain. If I'm an 8-year-old kid, what would you explain to me in one sentence what the hell it is?
Internet computer. So it's a bunch of computers connected that then have a logbook attached to it, in order to see what has happened across like when data has been moved.
Okay,
And
I'm an 8-year-old kid. I'm going to interrupt you, and I'm going to ask, can you show me a real example on my phone? Where am I using blockchain? And I'm challenging.
Most likely.
I mean, my startup is using blockchain in the description. I'm just trying to know.
So most companies and most people never will be directly using blockchain. But there are some companies that are using blockchain, and where it very much makes sense. Like from our own example, then as we try to connect global supply chain, what does it mean? Currently, you have hundreds of thousands of manufacturers, retailers, logistics companies, and different service providers that are trying to connect with each other in order to deliver or produce and deliver goods. As those things are produced and delivered, we have some questions. Are those things authentic? Did those things actually came from the place that someone said they're coming from? Is child labor used within the process? How much CO2 is actually being produced while we are producing or transporting those things? Who is lying to us in this process? Which parties are actually involved in this process? Etc. etc. And at the moment, what we're doing is we have a paper trail. I'm ordering something from someone, sending an email or document, or maybe I'm connected with some APIs, and God forbid, sometimes we EDIs. And funny thing for those that know what the EDI is, that then Walmart, if you want to do any business with them, there's the only way to connect with them is still through EDIs. EDIs is something which were generated before internet was widely available back in the 70s. They now are using internet in some form, but it's an old technology. And there's like no standard across supply chains about how to exchange information, as well as how to validate the correctness of this information. And that's where you could be building something on blockchain, a protocol, where everyone is connected to one part. There is some technology that enables to put all the information in a cleared form, and then to also verify that this is the information, and then share it with other parties, and then connect or share it and use this information throughout the chain. And what does the 8-year-old then know is that the toy that she has was actually produced in Germany without any child labor, and they actually did not kill any people while doing that. And that's like the simplest thing that in the end can be done. But at the same time, there are some interesting examples of companies that I've picked out that are doing something in different fields, which most of them are not popular. Most of them are not have no tokens or anything involved, but they're using blockchain, and they're actually using public blockchain. So there's also the question of public versus private blockchain, because you could be using the logging files and doing something in totally private form, but then what you usually lose is the ability of connecting, verifying, identifying, getting new builders to build solutions on, and everything else, which is why most of the private blockchain projects are actually failing. In supply chain, we've seen it tons, made from IBM, made by Maersk, made by everyone else. And I was just recently talking with the head of blockchain from Amazon. He's the head of blockchain at Amazon, and he's trying to kill their blockchain project because he thinks that what they have built is a train wreck, and they need to just go for public blockchains instead. And some of the projects here are Factum, which develops products that aid the healthcare industry in securing and storing digital records that are only accessible by hospitals and healthcare administrations or by authorized people. There's a separate thing which is also done with blockchain, kind of, with healthcare, and that's Estonian government. All of my health records are publicly available for anyone. The only thing is that since it is on this particular type of KSI blockchain, then if any one of you does go there and check those, then there will be a mark there, and then I can go and ask why did you check it? And if you don't give me a good answer, then I can go to the police and say that so Marcus checked my health records, I really don't like it. Let's do something about it. In Estonia there have been 3 policemen that have tried to check someone's data, and they have been sentenced to either jail or with very big fines because of that. Then there's Open Bazaar, which is a e-commerce marketplace connecting buyers and sellers utilizing blockchain technology and protecting them with various features including reviews, independent moderators, multi-signature, escrow payment systems, everything else. Again, blockchain is nothing else than just something where you can verify that this review is a real review, and that there is code that can act in exchange of this notary, the old notary, and I worked in notary, so I know that this entity is not needed. And it's just like code is doing this part and making sure that if you do what you do and the other part does what you need to do, then the money gets moved and everything else. And I saw a question from Nicholas.
Yes, Sanders, thank you so much for all these examples. We have some of them in mind. What is really interesting is the title of the session, the Web3 hype versus reality. And I'm sure it's quite difficult for some of us to actually make the distinction. Is there a distinction between blockchain, Web3, crypto? I mean, can you have Web3 without blockchain? Can you have Web3 without crypto? That's my because I understand the blockchain, very boring, very useful stuff, but where are the intersections
So
between
blockchain
Web3
is the
and
technology. Then we started calling it crypto when we started doing first projects and tokens, and then we realized that crypto has a bad rep, so we reframed it as Web3. And now we also understand that Web3 is kind of weird, and thus the OGs are still trying to call it crypto again. That said, most blockchain projects don't need cryptocurrencies, and most cryptocurrencies are not particularly currencies. Like most of them are just you have tokens and you have non-fungible tokens or whatever, but basically you don't need to bring it all together. In the end, there's blockchain technology that enables to connect the computers and systems. You have payment ways inside those blockchains for which you have tokens and stuff, which could be cryptos, and then you have information that you're exchanging across blockchain, which one form of it can be non-fungible tokens.
So would you argue that you can have Web3 without blockchain?
I would say that there is a way where you can say that you're doing a Web3 company without being a blockchain company, because blockchain in the end is only the people that are working with the underlying infrastructure of protocols. Web3, it could be saying that every company that's building anything on top of the protocols is a Web3 company. That said, it doesn't mean that most Web3 companies are decentralized. And decentralization is one of the biggest lies in Web3, which is something that I'm personally advising the Estonian government on as well, where every now and then they come and ask that, is this company actually a Web3 company or a bank? And then we look at it like it's a bank. It uses blockchain, it uses tokens, it has a DAO. For those that don't know what DAO is, it's a decentralized autonomous organization. In most cases it's not decentralized and it's not autonomous, it's just an organization which tries to say it's a DAO. But there are some organizations which are actually DAOs, where all of us could agree that we want to do something. and then we write a contract that does those things, and then we have voting processes where there is no person that can do decisions without this voting to occur, or we can pick ourselves some leaders who can do voting for us. But like only this is like pure DAO. Every other thing is mostly, as with most hype things, people are calling it a DAO, people are calling it blockchain, not really. And that's maybe something that we really need to be working on in the industry. That's to describe the government officials, to describe the enterprise officials, that sometimes blockchain is much more boring than we have been showing it in media, and it's like just something which is like a next step from cloud, and that's it. But we do need the hype, and the hype is needed because blockchain is so hard that most companies don't understand and don't want to even try it. And sometimes we need to make people think that if you use some sort of blockchain thing, your stock price will actually increase, because then they will start at least look into it and then realize the stock price didn't increase, but there is something to blockchain. And that's maybe the part where there is hype needed in order to get people to look into it. But in the end, we have to just constantly realize that it was always hype. And blockchain is just a very boring infrastructure in it. Does this answer your question? Yeah.
Can we use blockchain like cloud to store data?
We can. In most cases, it's very expensive, but we can. And usually, what happens is that since storing information on blockchain is in most cases, most blockchains, too expensive, because every time you store, you also have to validate the data. So there are blockchains that have been taking the route that we are dividing the storing of information and the validation of information. But in most cases, if you want to actually store something on a blockchain, and you might call it that you're storing on a blockchain, but actually what you're doing is you're taking something which is decentralized compute, like you have Filecoin is one of the projects, which is basically building the AWS of decentralized world, whereby instead of having all the servers in one place, you have hundreds of people or organizations that are providing the servers. And then it's like decentralized server park and decentralized storage, but it's not particularly the same as blockchain. It has very similar things, and it's very easy to mistake them. But in most cases, you don't want to have everything on chain. Sometimes you do. And when it comes to buying NFTs, for example, and if anyone is very much into NFTs, then in this case, you would rather want them to be stored on chain, just in case that someone would not be deleting the pictures and everything else. But that said, if anyone is into NFTs and wants to know how they actually work, in most cases, it is a file. NFT is just a container of information. And it doesn't have to be the picture itself. NFT is the container which has a bunch of links. And it has a hash showing that this is unique, this is owned by you, but the picture, the metadata, everything else is stored in some other centralized server, and you have the links there. At least that's how usually it's happening. Not that it's what the idealists want it to be, but that's just the reality.
What's your secret sauce to make your supply chain projects work and be maybe one of the standards? Do you need a lot of consortium or industry companies, or what's the secret?
Our secret sauce is being super friendly with Amazon, Google, Maersk, Kühne+Nagel, DHL, FedEx, and then also being friendly with smaller companies. So we understand that what we are doing is not about the technology. What we are doing is about bringing together the biggest companies from different industries and figuring out the rule set of how information should actually be saved, and then using blockchain as the method of utilizing all of this. So it's not about blockchain in most cases. Blockchain is just the tool in the business. And that's something that recently we have been also describing with governments a lot. That not all crypto projects are financial products. Like in our case, financial, like it has nothing to do with like supply chain. You have nothing to do with financial things. Same thing with this health records. You have nothing to do with financial things. In fact, does anyone care to think who is the biggest user of NFTs around the world as one company?
OpenSea?
No. Biggest user of NFTs globally which is almost more than all of NFTs in total, is Xbox Game Store. Every game that's being sold by Xbox is stored on a NFT in the back end. And why are they doing it? It's because NFTs are used for two things originally, and one of our advisors is the original creator for NFT contract, ERC 721, and when he was creating it, he had only two use cases in there: supply chain and licensing. Microsoft with Xbox is using it for licensing. What does it mean? That whenever a game is being sold, you have tens if not hundreds of parties that help to make it happen. You have the designers, you have musicians, you have some other parties. And usually when Phil buys a game, not for himself because he never buys a game, but for someone else, then the musician that made the soundtrack for this particular game in the old world took 6 years for them to get paid. By that time the band had broken twice. But now what happens is that since everything is trackable and thus more easily optimized, and you can do all sorts of things faster, then this band gets paid in 6 weeks. And those are the very crucial but boring things that blockchain helps.
Yeah, but isn't that the use case of an internal blockchain that's private, that's actually completely useless, and you could just do it as a database? I mean, it's just Microsoft internal.
Microsoft is connected to all of the artists and the other things. They're not directly connected with the artists, but they're like other parties that they're involved with.
Yeah, but it's a Microsoft system that they built to do that.
No. But that's the thing, that the other parties aren't a Microsoft system. They're using their own systems, and those systems are connected. So what blockchain helps to do in this case, and this is not unique for blockchain, it's just blockchain is one vehicle that helps do it, is the connectivity between the parties. If you have the connectivity, you have this one blockchain protocol that helps do it. And that's where blockchain, in most cases, is just a protocol like TCP/IP or some other protocols that we are used to using. And like Swift could be a blockchain if they wanted to. And that's the easy thing that we're doing. We're doing supply chain Swift. And the blockchain part is just something that speeds up some things and simplifies.
I still don't see the benefit for Microsoft. They could have built any product and given an API to their partners. There was no need to do that in blockchain.
Well, they saw that it was for them cheaper.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. And that's the biggest hurdle with blockchains, is that most blockchains are too slow and too expensive. But if you're able to make something which is fast enough, which is cheap enough, and which still enables you to retain some privacy in some particular things with access rights, then it can be used for enterprise. And for the question that was asked previously, that will the 8-year-old ever need to really know anything of the blockchain? In most cases, no, and it's something for just the enterprise people and maybe startup people. There are some use cases like you can put the NFT and you can sell the NFT, but in the end, it's like that's not the real use case, and the real use case is much more boring. But if anyone wants to get their ideals about blockchain broken even more, then I'm happy to discuss it afterwards. And at the moment, start wrapping up in order to let the next speaker talk about how to make the world more sustainable and make sure that sustainability is not a hoax in all of this. But if there's any more questions, oh, actually she's going there, so I'm happy to still wrap it up and talk to anyone later by the tree.
Thank you.
Thank you.